Let's Get To presents Go Go Astros, a focus on H-Town hardball.
To the count. A swing and a miss. He got him.
And we are back here on Go Astros. Ryan Presley. That was Ryan Presley closing it out in the top of the eighth to therefore allow my blood pressure to go back to normal. Andy Tom Cheston is with us. Brian Arbor is not, but you can read his excellent Substack breaking down the game. Andy, overall impressions of game one of the American League Championship Series, in which the evil Astros played the equally evil Yankees?
No, I saw a number of reporters, mostly unaffiliated with either team, claiming that America was now rooting for the Yankees since the Houston Astros are the most hated team in the history of baseball, which congratulations, guys. We've made it. It took 60 years. We actually have an identity, and I'm here for it.
I'm here for it too. Overall impressions of the game: JV started rough, got better, and I think got exponentially better to the point that I think it actually ended up saving the game and therefore saving the bullpen.
What it looked like to me was a team that had played in 4 different cities in 5 days against a team that's been sitting around for 4 days waiting to figure out who they were going to play. You had a tired bullpen against a rusty starter, and not necessarily in that order, but it was very interesting to me that, and we were messaging back and forth, Verlander had thrown almost 70 pitches at the close of the 3rd inning. Mm-hmm. And, having watched his last playoff start, I think all of us were kind of going, it'd be good if you could get through the 4th at this point, because that was, not unheard of. The dude was going to throw another 25 pitches at that point. But something happened in that 4th inning where he and Maldonado figured out whatever was going on with his location and his inability to throw strikes, and he got real efficient real quick, and basically won the game. Yeah, I know the home runs mattered, but Verlander doesn't pitch as well. The game gets out of hand pretty quickly, I think, and that's what having a veteran ace does for you in your lineup. And, hopefully we don't have to throw him again in this series because we win in 4. Not predicting that, but I'm happy to see him in Yankee Stadium if he does get to pitch again.
And speaking of our messages, you nailed it. Hit the nail on the head at the end of the 2nd. He wasn't getting any swing and miss on his slider. And then he kind of went away from the slider, and then he came back to the slider, and all of a sudden it was effective. I think it just speaks and comment on this. Like, it shows you that's the difference between a guy who's been doing this for a long time and somebody who has not done this at all, to be able to sort of figure it out mid-game like that.
Yeah, and you can look at, our rotation not too long ago. 2018, 2019, Fromber would have absolutely melted down in the situation where he was throwing a lot of pitches and not everything was going exactly right. And he gave up a home run to a frankly light-hitting center fielder. And you could see a person of lesser mental fortitude crumbling under that pressure, because it's a big deal. You're one of the final 4 teams in Major League Baseball for the season. Your team has a chance to go back to the World Series, and you're playing the flagship franchise of Major League Baseball. That's why you have a Justin Verlander on your roster, because he has demonstrated throughout his career that he will step up in that occasion.
The offense was a little erratic, I would say, and the runners on 2nd and 3rd with less than 2 outs to not get a run there really just is the ultimate of pissing me off. Or I guess maybe it was bases loaded. Either way, is this just a function of what you talked about, 3 games in 13 days or 4 games now in 14 days, not having any real rhythm on offense?
I think the offense is rusty, but I think, and I don't want to put this on one guy, because yesterday nobody out of the top 4 hit except for top 5, except for Jeremy Pena, who arguably the MVP of the game. When Altuve starts hitting, the offense will start rolling. And unfortunately, right, wrong, or indifferent, that is what you need to know about the Houston Astros in 2022. He is in the middle of an 0-for-19 slump. He did take some pitches last night, which was amazing compared to what he did against Seattle, where he seemed to be hacking at every first pitch. Actually drew a walk. And that's the best offensive output he's had in now 4 games of this postseason. This is a guy who, up until the last game of the season, had climbed all the way to 300 with 28 home runs, got his OPS up to 917, 918, had a very, very good season. And this is a very, very small sample size. It is 4 games where he hasn't done much, maybe 5, depending on how you want to count game 3 against Seattle. It was 18 innings.
You have 8 at bats, I think. So yeah.
So that's a thing. But I imagine he's got so much pressure on him to perform, and he has a history of breaking out of these things, just like he has a history of falling into these slumps. The good news is the slumps don't last a really long time generally. But for the offense to really get rolling, he's the pulse, he's the heartbeat, he's what we all gave George Springer credit for being. And we both of the people on this show right now were very, very nervous about what this team was going to be when it lost George Springer. And honestly, Altuve filled that role without much of an issue. Alvarez is getting pitched around as you would expect. Bregman is picking his spots. I've got no issue with Bregman. Jeremy Pena has been a revelation in the playoffs, which is fantastic for him. Hopefully, it continues. And, inconsistent offense. We got our 1 hit out of Martin Maldonado for a series. And then the guy got all heady and tried to bunt.
And then he had the hardest, like the exit velo on that bunt was 90 or something.
Exactly. I think it was harder than his base hit.
Yeah.
But you got production from the bottom part of the lineup, which any good team's going to have. But for fans to see what they want to see, Altuve is the key to that. And he's the one who's going to have to be figure out a way to turn it up and not get a base. I don't really care about hits at this point. He just needs to be a base runner, be an active part of the offense, and not almost an automatic out at this point.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of, a lot of what we saw about George Springer in 2017, move him down in the lineup, this and that. I think to your point, Altuve can snap at it at any time, and then he becomes the hardest out on the field. So I don't think moving it around, particularly while winning, seems like a very smart thing to do.
Yeah, no, Astro fans are great at this. It started with the Seattle series. We've got to bench Altuve. When's Altuve going to ride the pine and think about what he's done? I mean, just punitive nonsense.
Go to your room and think about
that. A week ago, we were all, he's probably on track to, it's going to take some good luck, but hit 3,000 hits. That's attainable. He's a guy that could be a Hall of Famer. To literally a week and a half later, he needs to be benched, and he really needs to think about what he's done. And it's why I hate Astros Twitter. It's why I hate the Astros Twitter community. It doesn't do us any favors on this show. I apologize, but my disdain is hard to hide when you have just idiot takes like that. He is going to continue to bat leadoff, barring injury, for the rest of the postseason. There is nothing that's going to change that. You want to get mad at somebody, get mad at Kyle Tucker for rolling over on an outside pitch that he had no business even swinging at. With 1 out and the bases loaded.
Look, and at first I saw a tweet about it and thought it was incorrect and unfair. And then when I back and watched it, and he didn't, like, if he would have busted it down the line, he would have beat the throw.
Yeah.
Like the throw was bang, bang, and he did not put in the effort you're used to seeing.
I am certain he was just as pissed off as the rest of us that he swung at that horrible pitch.
Totally. One of the things that I've seen out of Yankees Twitter has been, we punted the game. We put our worst 3 relievers in, to which, and I want your comment on that. You've used the worst 3 relievers you've had because you've used your best for 4 days in a row, and you can't do that and be sustainable. Overall, let's look at the 2 bullpens. You do have the Yankees. What I thought about after the game was over, we used Montero, we used Neris, we used Presley. But then I thought about the guys who weren't used. Abreu, who's been nails. Javier, Hunter Brown, Ryan Stanek, all these guys that have just been really just as effective as the other 3. Where does this matchup stack up for you as far as with the Astros having the bullpen versus the Yankees?
The Astros bullpen is better than the Yankees bullpen. And I know I say things out loud like that, and it's going to cause problems for people because we'll lose a game and it's my fault and I'll own that.
Right.
But the Astros, statistically, this year, the Astros bullpen is better than the Yankees bullpen. The rested Astros bullpen is better than the tired Yankees bullpen. So even if you think they're really evenly matched, there is no getting around the amount of games the Yankees have had to play with their starters not being great most of those games, having to use their relievers in very high leverage situations. They also don't have everybody they thought they were going to have in their bullpen. Whereas everybody in the Astros bullpen is healthy. I mean, there's one, unless you're really hung up on James ever coming back to pitch, which he's not. I know there's some Twitter fans that are gonna be mad if I said about that. Literally, we're healthy, we're well rested, we're using our guys judiciously. The Yankees haven't had that luxury, and if these are two evenly matched teams, that's the difference. I also happen to think that our rotation is better than their rotation. Cole and Nasty Nestor are great, and those are going to be tough games for us. But Severino, the guy who went last night, I'm not as worried about those guys if we have to face them again. Their rotation isn't lined up because they didn't take care of their business during the ALDS, their division series against the Indians.
They also didn't take care of their business when they could have put a roof on when they built new Yankee Stadium.
I mean, there's some truth to that as well. But I think that's the ultimate issue. It's just you've got a team that is better positioned than the other. And if everything else is even offensively, there is an advantage to be had. That's the Astros have it right now. And that doesn't mean they're going to win the series. I think they will, but the Yankees could get hot. I think the other thing, and I'm probably going to talk offense a little bit for the Yankees. The Yankees, I know Bader hit a home run. I know Rizzo hit a home run, and that's great. But they had like 6 base runners outside of those 2 hits.
Well, I do want to get to that. And there's a lot of all this shock and awe, I guess, about them striking out 17 times. But isn't that who they are? They are the ultimate true outcome baseball team where they're either hitting it over the fence or they're not hitting it at all, or they're walking. And yeah, 17 is a lot, but they're not used. It's not abnormal for them to have 13 or 14 in a game. I mean, it seems like this is who they are.
No, they're a big swinging team, and you've got Stanton on the downside of his career. I'm going to say that he's going to hit 2 home runs tonight. You've got Judge, who is great, but strikes out a lot. You've got Rizzo, same kind of profile. And that has been who the Yankees have typically built their teams around, is these high power, high strikeout guys, which is fine. It works for them. But I think that's what you're seeing is it's not shocking what the Astros did last night. It kind of plays into what the seasons have been. And at the end of the day, the Astros happen to be 2 runs better. When these teams played 7 times, the Astros led through the 9th inning in all 7 games, and only Aaron Judge was able to save them the 2 times that the Astros did manage to win. That bodes well. Doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot at the end of the day, but it's a nice sign. But I think their offense has flaws, and I think if it's possible for Astros fans to believe, their bottom part of their order is worse than our bottom part of the order.
Yeah.
Those of you that cringe when you see McCormick and Maldonado in the lineup, I mean, it could be worse.
Well, I mean, and then them losing Aaron Hicks, I know wasn't a big offensive producer, but he was very steady for that team.
Yep.
They're definitely a team in a bit of disarray. I do want to get.
They were hoping to have LeMahieu back for the series too, and the fact that he wasn't on the roster was, I think, a pretty big blow. So you lose Hicks, you lose LeMahieu.
Matt Carpenter still isn't right after his broken foot.
They've got some health issues. All that's to be said. They could beat Fromber tonight. They're going to be tough in New York because I do think these teams are very evenly matched, which it doesn't help my anxiety level at all. Doesn't help my desire to throw things at my large TV when you roll over on an outside breaking ball to hit into a double play that you don't bother to run down the. There's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, it's not Kyle Tucker's fault that I have anxiety.
No, and look, I think you brought up something where, yeah, they could lose tonight. and then Astros sky is falling, if only there's a previous historical example of the Astros splitting the first 2 games of an ALCS, then going to New York and coming back and winning in 6. Oh, wait, there absolutely is. That's how it went in 2019. As we kind of get close to ending this much quicker edition of Go Astros, it wouldn't be playoffs without Roofgate. You and I were talking about just the Astros, again, talking about anxiety that maybe is real or not, who knows. Maybe break down for those of us, I know we have some people that are not Astros fans that watch, why the Astros fans in particular have an issue with the roof, and more importantly, why we have an issue with the fact that we don't like being told what to do with said roof.
Well, the initial issue is this belief that the physics of sound being what they are, if the roof is closed, it's louder. Sound is contained in the space, it's louder in that space. That's, I think, a thing that people understand. So if the roof is open, it won't be as loud in theory. Fans could yell louder and make it okay. You went to the University of Texas, you've been in Texas DKR Memorial Stadium when it's been very loud. I went to Texas A&M, Kyle Field does not have a roof. It is very loud.
Yeah.
You can make noise without a roof. The bigger issue is that in 2005, a little history lesson from Grandpa Andy here, the Astros advanced to their first World Series. And before that World Series, the then commissioner and somehow still owner of the Milwaukee Brewers at that point, which longer story than we want to get into is why the Astros are in the American League now,
Right.
Came to Houston and said, well, no, the roof is going to be open for TV because the Astros aren't in charge of their own stadium. Major League Baseball runs the World Series. And so we were forced to open the roof for the 2 games that we played in Houston, and we got swept in that World Series. And those of us who have memories that go back that long hold it against Bud Selig, along with a number of other things, like having to play hurricane games in Milwaukee against the Cubs.
In a neutral site.
That's 3 hours away. But that's, ultimately that's the big issue, is that nobody, and I think Texans in general, we have a lot of stereotypes. Not all of them are great right now, but we don't like being told what to do. And nobody who, runs a stadium for 162 games and then 2 rounds of the playoffs wants to feel like, oh, well, somebody's coming in and taking away something we consider an advantage. Now, whether it's an advantage or not, I couldn't say. My belief before you reminded me today was that we were 0-2 with the roof open during the playoffs, those 2 World Series games I mentioned. Because you evidently believe that we played baseball after the American League Championship Series last year, which I don't recall at all. I know that I have a Jose Altuve championship ring from something I got.
Could easily be a fever dream.
I haven't looked really closely, but in your mind, in this fantasy world, we went 1-1 in those roof open games. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. The team's going to play where they're going to play. They play a lot of their games without roofs on stadiums, and they seem to do just fine. They won 106 games this year. The bigger issue for me is anybody feeling that Major League Baseball has come in and set a mandate when the same front office that would say that, the same head office of Major League Baseball, was refused to get involved with Atlanta's controversy with the chop last year, because baseball's a regional game and we don't involve ourselves with the day-to-day.
And for clarity to people listening, that was actually the same press conference. He said both things, that we're in charge of the roof, but racism is local.
I don't know why people hate Rob Manfred. He's so easy to like.
So easy to like. So let's look at the rest of the series. You talked about the fatigue factor. How much is one day off tomorrow going to matter for the Yankees in particular when you have 5 straight days again after that? Or do you think this is a compounding problem for them?
I don't think it's hard to say, because these are really high leverage games. And I would assume, not having played in any of them, the higher leverage the game, the higher the anxiety is, the more toll it takes on you mentally and therefore physically. I think that's a train of thought I can get behind. So for the Yankees, there has been no break for them since last Thursday nights, if I'm remembering right. So they played Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday,
Even with the rainouts, you're still showing up to the park and doing all your work.
Well, they went through the whole thing other than playing the game on that Sunday night, which pushed them to Monday. I mean, Monday to Tuesday. And then they have to turn around and get on a flight to Houston. It's a lot. We've seen it with the Astros and we've talked about it. And I think most baseball fans know when you see a team at the end of a long game streak or a long road trip, that team loses those games because they're just tired and everybody kind of chalks it up to, you know what, they just need to rest. I guarantee you the pillows at whatever hotel the Yankees are staying at tonight felt really good last night. Even if they did some crying into them because of the result, let's assume. But I think they are really looking forward to tomorrow, whatever the outcome of tonight is, because they are going to get to go home, sleep in their own beds tonight, and prepare for the game Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. That's their saving grace, but tonight could be rough for them, especially from bullpen standpoint. I think where you see fatigue really set in is not necessarily offensively, it's defensive miscues and pitching, because pitching is such.
We saw that twice. We saw Stanton misplay a ball off of the left field wall, and then while Judge made two excellent plays, he also misplayed a ball off the right field wall that allowed McCormick to score from first. So you've already seen that a little bit.
Well, and I mean, in the case of Stanton, it's more than just fatigue, it's rust. He hadn't played left field since sometime in July, according to the broadcast last night. So we're talking 3 months since he's fielded a ball. I think he did pretty well considering that, but everything hit to the left field was a little bit of an adventure. And like you said, Judge misplayed a ball that led to a run in a 2-run game. That's a pretty big deal. So I think you continue to see that. I think we see a more true representation of the Yankees team from this year on Saturday than we will tonight.
On Saturday. Okay. So I think trying to do a prediction on an individual baseball game is silly. I believe you had the Astros in 5. I have them in 6. There's no reason to back away from those. However, is it a must-win game for either team tonight?
Well, teams that win game 1 of the best of 7 series in Major League Baseball win the series 64.3% of the game. That is my Brian contribution for today.
And read his subject.
Yeah, they're and I'm sure the odds get higher if the Astros go up 2-0 versus splitting those first 2 games. What you would love to see is the Astros win beyond just our own personal desires, because it means no matter what happens in New York, we potentially come back home to wrap up the series. That's the safer route. But if we lose tonight, it's not the end of the world, because as you said, a scant 3 years ago, we ran the same script. And it could work out like it worked out in 2017, where we won the first 2 at home and then lost 3 in a row in New York badly. So
it's almost like they had a better offensive approach at home in 2017.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons it could have happened. I think they were good with their system. I think Carlos Beltran alluded to the fact that they were good with their. I mean, there's a lot of factors.
Joe Girardi alluded to it on MLB Network.
Is it allude when you say this is what we did?
Well, apparently it's allude because no one ran with it. But yeah,
allegedly.
Yeah.
No, I think from a prediction standpoint for tonight, I want to see Fromber go 6 innings strong. He has the capability out of all of our starters really to be the guy that goes deep into a game. If he is throwing ground balls and we are not doing stupid things, it should be a quick moving game. We've got to get the front part of our offense on track though.
Yeah, I got to get it on track. I like Fromber tonight, and particularly after watching how badly the Yankees looked against everybody's curveball, right? Like everybody's curveball, they looked equally silly. It didn't matter where it was thrown in the zone. And when I think about that and I think about what Fromber does well, it bodes well for me. And like you said, hitting things on the ground to a team that only scores home runs seems like a good formula to win.
Yeah. Things look on the upswing for the Astros as far as tonight's game is concerned, but you still have to play them.
Got to play them. All right. Well, will we be back tomorrow to break down last night's game? Andy, thanks so much for jumping on. Go Stros.
Go Stros. Hopefully Brian's with us tomorrow because I won't have to say stats and numbers again.
We both hope that, Andy. We'll talk to you soon.